Successful Marketing for Small Business podcast. Welcome again. And before I begin to introduce my next guest, I want to thank you all for taking time and watching the shows or listening the show on iTunes or Spotify or whatever channel. I'm so very grateful to you. Now, one more thing we need to add to this. I would love to hear your comments. I would love some feedback from you guys. From whichever channel you're watching or listening, please do leave us some feedback. Ask me questions, ask guests some questions, should you have any. And I would love to hear some more from you guys as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce our today's guest, and that is Reim El Houni. She's founder and managing director of Ti22 Films, very passionate about film and production. She was born in Germany, she's a Libyan, and brought up in London, so we have this multicultural variety here, and I'm going to ask her very soon about how this all happened. And her career includes working with TV stations like BBC to being executive producer and head of events at Dubai One. She launched her company Ti22 in 2011 and has won 24 New York Festival Award and a Cannes Corporate Media and TV Award. Reim also founded Dubai On Demand in 2014, which helps create video content for influencers and celebrities in Dubai on a regular basis. Some of her other ventures include Bamboutique and Fusion Digital Content. A media consultant, speaker, video strategist. Let's together welcome Reim and hear her journey from working as head of events at Dubai One to becoming an entrepreneur and running a video agencies, along with all these amazing other equally demanding ventures. Reim, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And so looking forward to hearing your story and your journey. You know, like I was talking before we started shooting, that I usually do a pre-podcast interview with the guest. And because I know you've been in such a long time, you've been in Dubai, we've met at so many different events and corporate coaching things. So I somehow felt like I already know you a little bit. And when I did the research on the podcast, I know you a little bit more, but I can't wait to hear all the details, which I don't think anybody knows. Because as I was researching on YouTube and LinkedIn and everywhere, we don't know how everything came about. So I'm excited to hear.
I hope it is exciting. Let's
sure
find out.
It
Yeah.
is. So before I begin the first question, I want to ask you, how did this multicultural thing happen? You're born in Germany, you're a Libyan, raised in London.
Yes. Yes, my parents are Libyan. I was born in Germany. It just so happened that my father moved to London for an opportunity when I was very young. I grew up in London and have always been super obsessed with films, TV, production. And so really that's being in London, that was the environment that, got me into television and started my career and my interest in that world.
Awesome. And your family, like what does your father do?
Well, my father for over 25 years was an editor-in-chief of an Arabic newspaper. So media has always been in the blood and in the system.
Of the reasons.
Absolutely, because in all honesty, you don't see many Libyan Arab women entering the media world. Yes. Most of my family are maybe teachers or doctors. And so I think the fact that my father's side of the family are very media oriented helped open up that side a bit more.
Yeah, lucky.
Very, yes.
So working with stations like BBC and being head of events at Dubai One, why did you choose to explore entrepreneurship and versus leaving a corporate job? I'm sure it was working with media is a good paying job.
To be honest, when it happened, everyone thought I was crazy. So I'm not sure whether I chose it as opposed to it choosing me. I think all of the best things in my life have happened quickly, have happened suddenly, and have involved me taking very quick decisions. And I can go back and tell stories all the way back from when I got into the industry, where I've made very quick decisions based on a situation, and that's catapulted me to the next level in my life. So the transition from being in a very senior role, very well-paying role, was literally a moment's decision, and I didn't really know what I was going to do at that point. So a lot of people were saying, "Are you crazy? What are you going to do?" I'm like, I don't know. I just felt it was the right time to do it, and I acted on it, and the next stage then happened. So
I can imagine the butterflies. I already feel them because when you're shifting like this, why Ti22 is there kind of a story behind that as well?
You mean as a name?
As a name.
So Ti22 stands for titanium in the periodic table. And titanium is actually considered one of the most unique metals because it's both the strongest, but it's also the lightest.
Yeah.
So the qualities give it a lot of value. So for me, I love to associate the quality of our work with similar qualities, and no one knows what it means. So it ends up being a very good conversation starter. So.
Awesome. So, and what's 22 around it? So is that the weight of the metal, is it?
So Ti22 is the whole symbol on the periodic table.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So when you started this company in 2011, video was still not very big, although TV was a little bit. And starting a video company, how easy was it, or how tough was it to set up a company like that in Dubai?
I have always been obsessed with the world of video, film, and TV. So that's been an obsession from a very young age. And everything I've done in my career has been focused on this industry. So for me, it didn't feel like much of a leap to start a video agency because that's where my experience is and where my expertise is. It comes with its challenges because you're right. At that time, for most people, video is a nice to have as opposed to it being a must have, which it finally is now. So we're finally popular.
Yes.
But yes, it's maybe not the obvious choice, but for me, it was the only choice because of my passion for it. I mean, it's something that I got into the industry from as young as 16. So being 16 years old, that's when I had my very first internship at NBC, actually, when they were based in the UK. And something in that experience made me think, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And everything from that moment was very, very focused on me growing in this industry. So when it came time for me to start my own company, there was no other industry. There was no other choice. This is it, because this is what I know how to do and what I know how to do well. So the choice was made, really.
You know, usually, like me being an entrepreneur myself, there are various aspects of business, for instance, but I'm not good at all of them. I'm good at maybe sales, business development, strategy. That's my forte. For everything else, I had to hire the right people to. So in your case, was it everything about video, or there were some particular aspects of production and filming that you were fond of?
I think I'm very clear that I know I'm a very good producer. That does not make me a very good business person. And when I started my company, I think that was one of my biggest fears, is that, you know, where am I going to get my first client from? How am I going to, you know, even get people to know who I am or know what I do? It was a very competitive marketplace, even though it may be a smaller industry, with much more established names. So how do you break out of that? And the only thing I could really do was educate myself as much as possible. So, and I think that's where our paths first crossed, because, you know, I signed up for every course available, and, you know, sales workshops, referral workshops, marketing workshops, because I really felt the need to understand the basics of business to complement my production knowledge, because it just doesn't matter. I could produce the best video possible for a client. But if I'm, you know, I don't know how to sell my services or even know the financial side of running a business, then it wasn't going to work. So to answer the question, the key thing for me was learning and actually networking. So networking plays a very big part in my life, although I'm one of those people who hates it. So, and people get very surprised when I say that, because they see me out in different organizations. Maybe people are familiar with BNI. I've been a member of a networking organization for 9 years, and that's played a big part because it's about relationships and people. So I've had to learn and I've had to network to get the skills and knowledge to get to where I am now.
So you're still part of BNI?
I still am. And I still, you know, it played such a big part when I started, and it still plays a part now. And it's very interesting to me because it's one of those situations where the longer I'm in it, the more value I see in the relationships that I have. I get business from people who I met 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And I think that the reason that's helped me is because I'm not innately a salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm not somebody who enjoys picking up the phone. I will never do a cold call. I will never go out of my way to push my service on somebody. So this allows me to do it in a more natural, organic way, where it's, I'm being recommended by people that I know. And that's just eased the sales process for me.
Yeah. So what was, you want to share any stories with us when you started? The first cold call that you did? I've done tons of cold calls, and I remember people hanging up on me, people saying no to me. I have tons of stories behind that. Would you like to share some of yours?
I think I'll be perfectly honest and say I am not a cold caller, and it's my stubbornness in that area which maybe has meant that my sales growth has been slower. But I am a big believer in relationships, and so even till now I'm not the person who will pick up a phone and call somebody I don't know and attempt to sell my services. So it's I'd rather do it more organically, meet people, get referred, and and other marketing strategies. Like I may send a mailer. That's probably the extent of my cold email potentially, but on the phone it's still not my cup of tea. I do, fortunately, with growth you can hire team members who can do that. So we have, obviously, with the team, other members are more comfortable, but I've learned to stick with my strengths and not push myself in areas that are my weak points.
So when you started, you were the first one to start. So who was the first hire you had?
The first hire I had actually was my accountant. My accountant and my PA, I think they both got hired within 6 months of me starting the business, and they're still both with me, and it's somewhere in our 10th year. And mainly because it's all about knowing your strengths, and for me, getting a financial understanding of where I'm at felt very important to have someone, look after that. And to be honest, the PA was just having a second level of organization also seemed very important. So those were my first two, roughly around the same time, within 6 months in.
Yeah. And when did you hire the sales team and other members of the... So when it comes to film and production, when you started your career, you would do the production, so you would arrange. What involves in this business exactly? So give me a little rundown on a simple project, for example.
An everyday project involves meeting a client, understanding a brief for a video, working with them to perhaps put a script in place or put a treatment in place. It is then our responsibility to bring that vision into the video. So it involves organizing everything from the locations to the actors to the styling, and then actually ultimately filming it, and then editing it and adding things like graphics and music and voiceovers, and till you get to the end result. So it's pretty much from the minute you have an idea of I need a video, all the way through till here's your finished product, is what we manage on a day-to-day basis.
I know now why the PA was so important, because you had so much to kind of organize.
It's a lot of organization. So generally people in the production space are quite organized, at least if they're producers, because there's a lot of details, a lot of coordination, a lot of people to coordinate. It's a very organizational role.
Yeah. So how do you price have you ever faced challenges in pricing a project, or in the beginning the challenges, and then how did you evolve through it? Because the purpose of me asking this question is, a lot of time entrepreneurs and business owners don't know how to price their services. And I actually learned this as well in a tough way. I used to, back in the days, I had a book called The Pricing Guide for Graphic Designers, because this is in 2008, 2009, when we were evolving. I started as a web design agency. It was not really working because nobody wanted websites. So I had to evolve to become a branding and a logo design agency. So graphic design, not so much my forte. Websites was. I had to hire people. And I didn't know how to price brochure project or a logo design project. There's people charging 1,000 dirhams and there were people charging 10,000 dirhams. Like, what is my value? So I actually bought a book called The Pricing Guide for Graphic Designers, and I eventually ended up hiring the author as my mentor.
Oh, wow.
Who actually is a very big key role in where we are today, to be honest. So this is my little story on pricing. I would love to hear your challenges when it came to pricing your products and your services actually?
Well, I've made so many mistakes.
I want to know all of them.
The fortunate part is that I had already been in the industry for about 10 years before I started my company. So I had a good gauge of the market, what others were charging. So I think that's usually a good starting point, is to see what other people are charging in the market to make sure that you're within that. However, even with that knowledge, it was very important to me in the beginning to just get clients. Yeah. So you start undercutting that, and you start offering things for less, and then a client wants it, only has a limited budget. And at that stage in my career or in starting the business, you are more comfortable taking those decisions because it's more important to get the client. With that come even lower margins. So my first year or two, I was making as low as 10% margins on projects, which is not sustainable for a business. Yeah. But I was getting the work, and I was getting good brands on board. And that was important to me, to have a portfolio of good quality clients and projects. So I think they may have been the right decisions from a perception perspective, but they were not the right decisions from a pocket perspective. And then as time passed, it was about realigning and gradually getting your margins higher and your pricing higher, which became very challenging with clients who started with me.
Because once they pay lower fees, they will never pay higher fees.
Correct. So that was a very important lesson, which is, when you start with a client, you're pretty much setting the standard for what they can expect in the future. Yes. And that's really, sometimes I still make that mistake. Sometimes if it's a client that I really want to work with, I see the value in the relationship, I'll still, opt for a lower amount. But as long as I'm doing it with the knowledge that this is now set in stone as their rate going forward, and it's very difficult to change that. So that I think is one of the key errors that I made. A second key error for me is that because I'm very quality conscious, so I'm someone who, I don't want to say I'm a perfectionist, but I do want things to look good. And in my industry, what a client receives is also representative of my skill set. Absolutely. It's very visual. Yeah. So I start fixing things, so I'll look at a project, and maybe a client hasn't paid for color correction, but I feel like it has to be color corrected, so I will go ahead and do that. So I spent a good 2-3 years investing extra money into clients' projects that was not budgeted for, just mainly because I felt the need to give them a better product than what they paid for. So it was actually an internal issue, which is not the right way to go to sustain a business. You can call it a mistake, but 24 New York Festival Awards later, there's a reason we won them. It's because our projects were good. Yeah. But I have had to teach myself to sort of restrain myself, and if a client isn't paying for that service, let it go. That's their choice. They've chosen not to pay for that service. But it also means that someone once told me, some you do for show and some you do for dough. Yeah. So it's understanding the difference that, some are a business decision and some is worth putting in that extra effort because they end up being your showcase clients or your showcase videos. Yeah.
Are these clients still your clients? The ones that you had really undercutted and given some cheap pricing?
Amazingly, yes. Because I believe I'm quite good at keeping relationships. That is my strong point. So it's much easier for me to keep a client than it is for me to get a new one. I still have all my first clients from my first year. My very first client was Enoch, and we filmed with them this week. So I'm very fortunate that they've stuck with me. So.
But working with corporates, one of the other challenges is, for example, you have the marketing team who's working on a project with you now might not be there after 2 years. People change, people move. Does that affect your entry in the company again and all those things as well?
Yes and no. I've learned to not just rely on one contact in an organization. I think that's very important. So whenever we do work on a project, it's a case of how many people at that level can we be introduced to sustain that relationship.
Yeah.
But sometimes it also means that when that client moves to a new organization, you have a new opportunity to start working with them with a new brand. So it's worked for me so far. But yes, I've become more conscious as time goes to not rely on one point of contact and just make sure that my relationships are across the department, for example.
Yeah. You know, one of the things you mentioned while we were doing the testings of the mics and stuff is that Ramez, who's also one of our podcast guests, by the way, I hope you guys have heard his podcast. If not, do check out or look out for it. He used my testimonial to sell you the course, and one of the things in the course, in Ramez's course, is being authentic when selling. Although when you try to be authentic when you want to sell, there are a lot of times some clients want to ask a lot in a small fee. How do you handle those challenges as a business owner? Because in our case it's different, but for a TV production, there's so many other people. You have people to pay, you have editors to pay. I don't know if you have all in-house or how is that. I would love to know your current structure. What do you outsource? What you have in-house? Why did you choose to outsource? Particularly the reason being that this will help give other entrepreneurs and other business owners a kind of way how other businesses manage their company and how they grow, with what expenses do they cut and what they add. But if you had to, going back to the original question, was that because you have so many people and processes involved in running or doing a video campaign or a shoot, if a client tries to squeeze a lot in, eventually it's basically undercutting you or making you, giving you less for more. Have you had such challenges? If yes, then how did you manage to, did you do them, or how did you change it? What did you do to maneuver and make sure that you got the right price out of that project?
This happens all the time, like on a daily basis. So I'm very familiar with this challenge. Just to go back to, I guess, the journey into our business model, because I think that would answer some of it, is that when I started Ti22 Films, I was very, very focused on high-end productions, with certain budget minimums. And as a result, most of the team I worked with were freelance. They were outsourced. Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned, it was myself, my PA, and my accountant. Yeah. And you are able to do that with larger projects and larger budgets. And also because, in our industry, things evolve very quickly. So it kind of made sense that, you're always working with whatever the latest camera is and the latest technology, as opposed to having that equipment in-house. Yeah. So that meant that it was less easy to allow for what I call scope creep, when a client starts asking for, a change here and a change there. And if everyone I'm working with is a freelancer or is outsourced, then I do not have that flexibility to offer additional elements to the requirements. So it often ends up being a pushback and trying to get them to actually increase their budget or acknowledge that it wasn't in the initial scope of work. And fingers crossed it works. Having said that, because of my relationships with a lot of the freelancers we work with, or the suppliers we work with, that has helped me in many situations offer more than what was originally agreed. So I stick to the fact that relationships are your key to everything. If I have an editor who I'm working with, every week on a project, and this particular client needs an extra edit, they're more likely to be willing to support me if I'm consistently giving them work, or if they know that I'm a reliable source for them. So I would say it is still possible to get additional services done for your client if your relationships with your suppliers are good. Now things are a bit different. mainly with the introduction of Dubai On Demand in 2014. That was mainly to focus more on the social media landscape and working with a lot of influencers and creating regular video content. So I had to evolve and start hiring our own in-house team. So we do have an in-house team of videographers and editors who all work on primarily DSLRs. So that is easier, cheaper, more cost effective for clients, but is also in-house, which means that we can, accommodate more changes here and there. I still stick with the same advice, which is that whether it's in-house or not, there has to be a level of pushback and there has to be a level of acknowledgement from the client that if we are doing this, it is in addition to the existing scope. And something that Ramez's course did teach me is to try and negotiate something in that situation.
Yeah.
So if someone is requesting an additional edit, what can you get out of that? What is it that they can offer you? I recently, literally a week ago, had a client, I think, push back for the 4th time on edit changes, and they know it was beyond their scope. So I said, okay, fine, we can do it. Can you pay me today? And she did. So it's, and I don't think I would have asked that question had I not gone through the training or got it into my head now that if I'm going to do something additional for a client, is there something that they can do for me at the same time? And most of the time, I'm trying to find loopholes, whether it's payment terms, whether it's access to locations, whatever it may be. But what can I get out of this situation if I'm going to accommodate that?
Yeah, I think a little message to all the listeners and our audience was, if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur and these are some of your challenges, which is negotiation, it'd be a good idea to invest in training and learning the skills to negotiate, right? You mentioned you were part of BNI, and I'm going to come back to Dubai On Demand, by the way. But I just wanted to first ask you a question on BNI is a very demanding network organization because you have to meet weekly and everything. And I'm sure it has really helped you because you speak on a weekly basis, I think on a monthly basis, you stand up on stage and kind of talk about your company to the members, right? What other things have you done apart from BNI that has helped your business grow? Any other networks you're part of?
I think the main one for me has been BNI because it's a weekly commitment. So you're seeing the same people every week. You're actually sharing you're speaking to them on a weekly basis in terms of your business. Other networks, I'm a member of the Young Arab Leaders. I've been a member for 3 years. It's a very different organization, but I've had some great opportunities through them, whether it be learning, whether it be speaking, actually, because that's one of my goals. I think as an entrepreneur, you need to be more visible, and part of the visibility is opportunities to speak at different events, and Yal have facilitated quite a few for me. So I think they're the main two for me at the moment in terms of networking organizations. Yeah.
Did speaking come naturally to you?
I've been told it does, but I'm also, it's a goal for me to keep developing that. And especially for this year, I'm focusing on more speaking opportunities and just to really hone that in.
So how do you get these speaking opportunities? Do you reach out to people to give you the opportunities, or they come to you? How does that work?
I've been fortunate till now that I haven't reached out, and I've just been recommended by different people. So yeah, I guess I've been fortunate. Yeah.
That is one of the, if a business owner wants to speak on, like one of the advice my mentor gave me, Elise Benin, who's the author of the book, The Pricing Guide to Graphic Designers. So she would give me these tasks. This is really back 10 years back when I didn't know what to do. We were going through a major recession, 2008, 2010, and cold calling was not working. Nobody wanted, and I was actually, at that time, we were very focused on Spa Genie, which is spa clients. And I was still exploring Spa Genie and like different industries, like spa, even spa has levels. There's hotel spas, there's mid-level spas, and there's neighborhood spas. There are clinics, there's aesthetic centers. So I eventually understood that clinics, aesthetic centers, and neighborhood spas are my potential clients because neighborhood spas are entrepreneurs, business owners. But if a hotel spa, there's a big chain, it's not the decision maker sitting there. So I learned the hard way when going through the So Elise would tell me, Namita, in a day, Namita has 10 hours. Only she can meet maybe 3-4 people. But if Namita speaks on stage, she can talk to 1-200. I'm like, Elise, I can't speak on stage. I have very interesting stories, but it's not about me, it's about Reem. But yeah, speaking one too many, or speaking on stage, or looking out for opportunities where you can speak on stage is one of the fantastic ways to spread your message quickly and make more people know about what you do. At what point did the company reach the break even? How many? I understand there's not big, like, because you guys outsource equipment, I guess. I don't know. But was there a period where you had to, it took 3 years or some years to reach that break even happy point and you start making money, or it's just right off the bat?
I think I'll be honest, every year has been a challenge in one way or another, and probably because I've evolved my business model as well. So if you're just talking about breaking even, that happened in my first year, and that happened probably quite quickly because I was very fortunate to get some larger clients in my first year. But at that point in time, we were a much smaller team. My overheads were not that high, so it was feasible. If I look at today, my overheads are significantly higher. The type of projects we do are very different. So it's almost a challenge on a yearly basis because we've changed every year. To keep that growth happening.
So what kind of changes are we, like the buy on demand is, I think, one of the changes you're talking about, and I would love to talk about that's how did you come up with the buy on demand idea? It's a very interesting idea to create content for influencers.
So I'm very, very obsessed with future trends, and I would go and attend conferences in other countries, and you'd hear about all these amazing things happening in other parts of the world. And I'd come back here almost frustrated, thinking, we should be doing this. Why is this not happening? How do we get this started? This had happened for at least 2 years, where I'd heard in the US specifically about a lot of online content and transmedia content and all this kind of stuff. And no one seemed to be doing it here. And I just thought, right, it has to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm also a very big believer in signs. So, and as I mentioned earlier, acting quickly. So it just so happened that, I used to be executive producer and head of events at Dubai1. I'd hired many of the presenters there. And one day I got a message that they were all made redundant.
Oh my God.
Because Dubai1 had decided to focus on acquiring content. So it was almost like I was in a space where I was ready to develop this online channel. Meanwhile, but I needed people because it wasn't feasible for me to do that on my own or in my current resources. And then meanwhile, a whole group of people just got made redundant.
Yeah.
So I emailed them and I just went, hi, I'm so sorry to hear your news. However, this is something I want to do. If you're interested, come and meet me and I'll tell you more. And they did. And I was very fortunate to have 9 presenters who pretty much signed up with me straight away. And, they put in a lot of effort and energy, and they were recognized names coming off TV. And it had this massive launch because out of nowhere, I suddenly had a channel with 9 well-known presenters. And then that came with a whole other world of challenges, which is, okay, it's great that you have a poster and it's great that you have, the perception, but where's the content? Like, how are we now going to develop this? And I remember it really clearly because they'd just left the TV station, and I think it was the film festival, DIF at the time, which was going to be, I think it was 6 weeks away. So we went and we met them and said, look, this is what we're planning. And they loved it. They were like, this is great, amazing. Yes, you can launch it at DIF. We'll give you a press conference. And it was like, amazing.
Wow.
We walked out of that meeting and I just stood there and I thought, we've got a lot of filming to do in the next 6 weeks. So for 6 weeks, it was like filming pilots for all of the presenters and just, getting going. Press conference went really well. Our launch went really well. And then that's when the challenge started. Because it went so well and we were in a lot of newspapers, we started to get brands contact us. And they were saying, oh, where's the show? How can I be part of it? And when they all started to realize, one, we had just started. So we don't have a track record yet. We don't have the views yet. And 2, when they realized it was all online and on YouTube, at that point in time in 2014, most of the brands we met with were not interested in YouTube. Most of the brands we met with
Not
were
popular
like,
yet.
yeah, they were all like, oh, so it's not on TV? No, it's not on TV. It's on YouTube. Yes, it's on YouTube. You want to do a show on YouTube? Yes, we want to do a show on YouTube. And it's so fascinating to me now that, you know, just 5 years out and everyone is on YouTube, you know. So I've always been a little early, you know. So we did struggle for a good 2 years, I would say. We were fortunate to have some brands join us, and at that time, it was all about creating online shows and online content with our presenters, branded with brands that joined us on the journey. But it was very, very difficult to convince a brand to get on board purely because they didn't see the value in being online, and they didn't see the value when they couldn't see the numbers. And I was having conversations about a reach of a show on TV, and I was trying to explain to them that I come from the world of TV. I'm telling you, you might think that's your reach, but that's just the number of households that own a TV set. That's not your reach. Online, you can actually track everything and see how many people are viewing, and it was very hard. So yeah, we've evolved several times, and Dubai On Demand today is not what it was when we started. So I mean, I can go on about that. It's a bit different.
I would love to hear more about Dubai On Demand.
So Dubai On Demand now is, as of the last, I would say, year and a half to 2 years, it's become a combination of an influencer marketing agency, but we also have an influencer incubator. And even that, we don't really call it an influencer incubator anymore. It's more thought leaders that we have on board, content creators, and it's a monthly membership. So for me, that's a whole flip on the business model again, where we now have customers who sign up with us for a year, and they pay a monthly fee. And for that monthly fee, we film with them every month. We create regular video content. They have access to our community, to our training, and it's really just to help them grow. So going back on my break-even point, it's now very different because it's about how many members do we have who are paying this monthly subscription. And then we've got a lot of new customer service challenges because we're now maintaining them long term.
Every second person is becoming an influencer now. So.
It is, but I think that it's not about being an influencer. It's about being a thought leader, and it's about being an expert in your niche. So a lot of the people we work with, they are not the traditional influencers. You know, we have an author, we have a lawyer, an accountant, a psychologist. They're people who, you know, for the average person out there, they probably think an influencer is just fashion, food, makeup. But we have a lot of people who have a lot more depth, and they're experts in a particular field. And I think we're allowing them to become more visible and show that expertise through their video content or their social strategy or through new opportunities. And I think over time, the model will, you know, be heavily weighted on their side more than it is on the current influencer model.
So these are basically small business owners who are creating their video content for their social media and their YouTube channel and stuff. Is that what we are talking about?
Many of them are small business owners. They could be coaches, consultants, experts of some sort who
where is this content used? Are they using it on YouTube, or where is this going?
So most of them are putting it on LinkedIn, and that's actually where I feel there's the biggest growth opportunity at the moment. I think LinkedIn, just by posting a video, you get 20% more engagement these days. It's definitely becoming a space for content creators more than it was just a year ago. And I think the type of people on LinkedIn is a more, they're more professionals on it. So for business owners and thought leaders, the opportunities are much larger than posting it on Facebook, where your mom says hi and I miss you and that kind of stuff. So most of our creators are posting on LinkedIn. Instagram is still very big in this market, so it's a combination of the two.
Interesting. It's amazing how I see you pivoting your business model as the world is changing, and this has been a trend across all our podcasts, by the way. I've interviewed quite a few guests now, entrepreneurs and business owners, who've on time pivoted their business and changed the model to match up to the society and the trends and what the world needs. And one of the other things I would like to point out in our conversation is that you went to America, you went to these conferences to be honest, even our business Above Digital, when I started going to America for these digital marketing conferences and I saw what they are doing, that's how you can predict the future, because the West is way ahead of us. We are way behind. They used to say 7 years. I don't know how true is that. Are we still 7 years behind the West? But we are some few years behind the West. So what's happening in the States would come here in the next 6 months to a year. So it'd be a good idea to look out for conferences in your niche that are happening abroad, not just United States, anywhere in the world, and go attend them. Spend some time in educating yourself with what's happening in the world, in your niche, in your industry, and what can you add new to your market would be something to exactly what I did for our company. I went for a copywriting conference to Stanford. That's where I learned how copy is so important in our ad campaigns. Then I went to San Diego for another digital marketing conference. That dream changed our business. That's where I learned most of our lead generation and digital marketing strategies that we now apply to our market.
But I do think it's great and terrible at the same time.
Why do you
because
say that?
I'm a big learner. I love going to conferences. I spent years going to the US. I've gone, and for my industry, you go to different events, even in Europe. I always came back very excited with a lot of ideas and wanting to implement. And as a result, I've implemented too early for this market on a number of occasions. So it's just about whether or not you can keep the momentum going. I was very fortunate with Dubai On Demand that, I started way too early. So 2014, no one here was ready for that. I'm very fortunate to have a second coming with that, in the last 2 years. But there was definitely a phase in the middle where it was very disheartening, where you sort of think, am I doing the right thing? How is it that something is so popular in other parts of the world and it's not picking up pace here? How is it people can't see that we're ahead of the game? I totally agree with what you said. I think learning is key, traveling is key, seeing other markets is key, but also understanding the market that you're in, because sometimes you come full on with an idea, and when it doesn't sit, it's not because it's a bad idea, it's because it's just not the right time. And it's how to be able to sustain it or resuscitate it when the time is right.
What did you do when you had that feeling? Shit, what is happening? Why isn't this working? Why aren't people asking for more videos? Whereas that is the trend everywhere else. How did you manage to sustain the business then? Because I understand it was a little bit of struggle then.
I was fortunate that I'd already established a reputation and clientele with Ti22 Films that I would say for at least a good year in the middle, the bulk of our work came from Ti22 and less so from Dubai On Demand. And then I was able to kind of resuscitate Dubai On Demand when the government here decided to instill influencer licensing. So that was totally unexpected and out of my hands. But almost 2 years ago, the Dubai government decided that there should be this new license for influencers. So suddenly influencers everywhere were trying to figure out what the best route is for them. And that felt like an opportunity in this market to say, right, the timing might be right now, because now everyone knows what an influencer, well, it has a name, but everyone knows what it is. They're trying to create content. There's a world of people out there who now need help with their licensing. Now is the time to get licensed and push this again. And that was almost 2 years ago. So I don't know, to be honest, if it wasn't for that little situation, whether I would have put the same energy and push back in, but it just felt that the time was right to try again. And thankfully it has been. So
it's important to keep looking out for these opportunities. I read one of your blog articles on your website about a pitch you were making to a company. I would love to hear that story. Maybe you can share the story. It'll be better versus me sharing what happened.
I wasn't expecting that question. I just had it was about a year ago, I guess. I had a very unusual situation with a client, and it's something I've never come across before, where I just received a phone call from a procurement manager who said, oh, we've shortlisted you for this project. We need you to send your bid, and we'll be giving you a call at this time. I said, okay, fine. I thought it was procurement, normal process. And then I got an email like with a confirmation at the time. And it sounded, or at least my understanding was that I had to send my bid at that particular time for some reason. So, which sounded very unusual. The time came and I logged on. And that's when I discovered that I was bidding against what possibly was one or more other companies on what was a live auction for this project. So it was a case of, I put a number forward. And about half an hour later, I got a call saying, well, someone else has put another number forward. Do you want to counter?
Oh my
And
God.
I just thought, I am currently, I'm bidding to win a project against another company. I'd never come across that before. I still find it very unusual. I withdrew from that situation. But I just thought, in a world where, especially the video world, it's about creativity, it's about a vision. It's very subjective in a lot of ways. It's like what you like and what I like might be very different things.
Absolutely.
How they're trying to get these companies to pitch against each other in an open auction.
What if the lowest bid wins and you don't like what they produce?
Totally. I don't think...
And the high chances of that, by the
There
way.
is. And it was quite sad because I just felt that something that is meant to be a visual branding, creative expression of your company is now being judged by, a piece of software and whether or not I put a number in that was low enough. So yes, I wrote a blog article about it because I just...
That was an interesting read.
Yeah.
But that does happen. People do choose a cheaper option, and then mostly I've seen people struggle with the cheaper option.
Well, I rang a couple of people when it was happening saying, have you ever seen anything like this or heard anything like this? And that's when I realized that I think in some commodity businesses it is normal. So for example, if, it's a cartridge versus another cartridge, because it's the same product. So you can compete if it's the same product. But in the creative world, it's never the same product, so very unusual.
Yeah. One of the things I want to ask you about is when somebody's choosing to hire a video company, for example, because video is important these days. Like our ad campaigns need video, social media needs video. Everything now, if you're marketing digitally, you need video alongside. And the perception in the mind is video is expensive. There are freelancers who come and do video shoots for you for your social content, say 1,000 dirhams. And there are companies who will charge you 5,000 dirhams, or maybe they'll charge you for a day's shoot and then editing and post-production and all these new words that maybe a small business owner doesn't really know. What would be your tips or suggestion to a company or a small business owner to understand what to look for, how much to pay, like a price range or a bracket, how to check if the video company they're hiring or the videographer they're hiring are good enough to give them good stuff? Is there anything you can share, your tips and suggestions when choosing to work with a company?
I think in any case, whether you work with us or you work with someone else, you need to see their work. So I think step one is always to ask for a showreel or ask for videos they've edited before, because I think that that'll give you a very good indication of the quality and what you're getting. And I've seen people who kind of jump in and they don't know what they're getting at the other end. So, or they're just basing it on a budget. Oh, they've only got 1,000 dirham. But maybe if you stretch to 2,000, you'd get the video that you need. So I see a lot of short-term decision-making in the small business owner space. I understand it because your budgets are limited and you're trying to, save wherever possible. But equally, I think you end up spending more in the long run if you work with a supplier who doesn't have a track record or doesn't at least have something to show. And the challenge in our industry is it's become very easy to enter. So it's become very easy for someone to download some software, buy a camera, and then position themselves as a company. The other thing I would say is to actually check if they're licensed. So check if they have a trade license, because again, it depends on what your shoot entails, but majority of shoots in this country require you to have a permit. So you can only get a permit if you have a trade license. So working with a small business owner, they'll say things like, I want to film Burj Khalifa and I want to film downtown and I want to film in all these places. And you will have smaller companies that says, yes, no problem, we'll go, and not understand the risks involved if you don't have the right permits in place. So I would suggest at a minimum, ask for a show reel and ask for a trade license. Beyond that, it's then your decision if you choose to ignore those two elements. But that, I think, is a minimum.
I think the show reel will be a good indicator to see what kind of quality the work is produced. And a lot of, like, for example, our clients, we know we are not a video production company, so we ask for videos and images. So they outsource it to videographers or freelancers who would come to their business, because mostly we work with brick and mortar business. And if you are a brick and mortar business, then the person can come to you. And but showreel would be a good idea, and plus asking them the ideas before finalizing the price, and trying, rather than cutting the price, seeing the difference between expensive and the cheaper, and choosing accordingly the right one, I guess.
I think even with us, whenever we're working with a client, because we work with such a wide range, with Dubai on Demand, we work with a lot of individuals, a lot of business owners, thought leaders, influencers. So the price point is very different. And we understand that we need to be more cost effective. It has to be more budget friendly. Even our memberships are at 2,000 dirham a month, so we're trying to be as cost effective as possible. But it's important to show links and references of what they're getting for that money, so that if that's your budget, that's what you get. Meanwhile, if we're working with a government entity for a very different type of project, their budgets are going to be much higher, but the deliverable is going to be very different. So we tend to show references and show reels at that level. So whoever it is you're working with, I think it's understanding what you get for that amount and seeing the references accordingly.
Yeah. I would love to talk about now your other ventures. You had Bamboutique. Then you also had another venture called the production
Fusion Digital.
Yeah. Maybe you can. How was that? How did you get into Bamboutique, which is a fashion?
Yeah. So anyone who knows me will know that I'm not a particularly fashionable person. I've never been. I don't really care very much about fashion or shopping or any of those things. But I did come across bamboo fabric again on one of my US trips on a conference, and I loved it. I just fell in love with the fabric, mainly because when I got to understand, I happened to touch it, and it was so soft. And when I started to understand all the qualities, and it's like antibacterial and thermoregulating, and I'm someone who sweats a lot in the heat, and I'm like, oh my God, this wicks away moisture and all this stuff. And I came back to Dubai and I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. This was 2011, so couldn't find it anywhere. And at the beginning I was like, well, this is insane. We're in a hot country, we should have this fabric or clothes made out of bamboo. My first port of call was to contact the company I saw in the US. I explored the option of franchising. It was quite expensive. It was much more expensive than I would have imagined. And then it occurred to me, well, why would I franchise something no one knows about? So surely it'll, have the same impact if I just start on my own. So it was, I had a friend of mine who we decided to partner up and start the venture. But it was interesting because I was entering into an arena where I know nothing. I don't know anything about the industry, but was very passionate about the product. So how do I make this happen? So again, education was very important, learning as much as possible. But there were many, many mistakes that were made purely out of ignorance or lack of information. And every challenge we had, our option was to Google it. It's like, how do you do that? I don't know. How do you do that? I don't know. Let's Google it, and try and understand. And so we lasted 4 years. I still believe in it strongly. And maybe it's another example of poor timing. Maybe it's another example of now 2020, the market is much more open to eco-friendly products and clothing. And if I was to resuscitate it now, it would be a very different story. But at that time, no one had heard of bamboo clothes. So whenever I said it, they assumed it was very harsh. So it was like, no, it's really soft. So the only way I really sold product was by going to all the pop-up markets and having people touch it. So people who felt it would buy instantly. But online, I barely sold anything because they hadn't come across the product. The only products we sold online were to people who had bought from us in person. So it was very much a business that needed to be tangibly seen, touched, felt to grow in a market which still didn't understand eco-friendly clothing. And 4 years of trying to kind of run that along with my video business.
Because they both started at the same time.
They started at the same time. Bamboutique was 6 months after Ti22. And so what was happening was I'd be shooting during the week and all this, the world of video, and come Thursday night, I'd be like packing stock and like preparing labels and bags and getting ready to go to a market on Friday morning. And so it was a very exhausting period. But I believed in it so much. I still believe in it, but it just, the timing, I guess, was off. But I can tell you some really silly mistakes. I mean,
I would love to
one that comes to mind is we got our first batch of clothes, and we did it the long way round. We wanted to be as eco-friendly as possible. We selected a particular factory. We had the fabric made. We had it shipped, designed, tailored locally. So it was quite a long journey to the end product. And I remember my partner putting on an outfit. Great. She rang me the next day. She said, it doesn't fit. So what do you mean it doesn't fit? It fit yesterday. Why doesn't it fit today? She's like, well, I washed it and I'm telling you, it doesn't fit, you know? So I was like, okay. So I rang the factory and I'm like, I'm not understanding how, she washed it once. How does it not fit? Oh, you didn't ask for it to be pre-shrunk. Pre-shrunk? Sorry, what does that mean? I didn't even know we had to pre-shrink fabric. So, that kind of lesson was like, we had rolls of fabric that were not pre-shrunk. And the only way, so we had to still sell them and tell everyone to buy at least a size or two bigger because it's going to shrink. So just things like that, which obviously if there was someone more experienced in the industry involved, then I would hope, we wouldn't have those mistakes.
I guess making mistakes in a service industry is much better than a product industry.
It's frightening stuff, when you've got roles, and just things like batches of outfits coming that are sewn back to front, and very very different world. But learned a lot, and definitely.
Did you lose money in that project? I'm sure.
Yes, definitely we did. But it taught me a lot. Especially if I was going to go into another product business, I wouldn't go into clothes. And especially clothing, there are so many variables. You've got sizes and international sizes, and you're much safer going with, a product that, is the same across the board. So I think we were particularly ambitious for an industry that we didn't know, let alone the eco-friendly element, because then you had a lot of people wanting to ensure that it's eco-friendly. So, okay, so we can't use plastic. Okay, so we need vegetable dye. So that was a whole other learning in itself.
Wow, that's a lot of learning though. But now whenever you go shopping, you know what goes into that.
Yes, totally.
That particular.
Yes.
Do you have mentors?
I think for me, I'm a big reader, learner, and so my mentors are probably worldwide mentors. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I listen to him almost daily. I've attended a number of his events. So I'm actually also a big fan of Gary Vee. So I listen to him very regularly. So for me, mentors at the moment are all in the online space and what I learn from there.
What is Collective Dxb?
Okay, the Collective Dxb is a joint venture between a company in LA called The Collective and Dubai On Demand. So The Collective in LA, it organizes a lot of influencer events, influencer conferences, and they have an annual conference, and we recently partnered with them to bring that conference to Dubai, which took place a couple of months ago.
I heard about that.
Yeah, so it was a great opportunity for us to explore synergies across the US and here. We brought some of the influencers from the US here, and we're hoping to get more involved with our team in LA in the future.
Okay, so their influencers came here and shared their story on what goes in becoming.
Correct. It was very, our conference was very content oriented. So what's helped them grow, what kind of strategies, what should we look out for in the future, whether it be trends, whether it be lifestyle, but it was very much in the fashion, food and lifestyle space.
Okay.
But yes, they came and shared their stories, and equally we're hoping to get more involved in their conference in LA.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Being a fan of Gary Vee, he talks about creating your voice, having a voice, having an audio or a video channel. Are you planning to launch something of your own?
I am. I've filmed a lot of content for my own video series and podcast, which is called The Content Creation Coach. So that'll be coming out very soon.
Looking forward to that, yeah.
And a big reason for me doing that is because I realized working with more business owners, SME owners, and thought leaders over the last year and a half, there's a lot of information that I consider to be basic because I've been in the industry for so long, which actually is very new for people. So sometimes, I accept that the content is going to be at an entry level, but that's actually what our audience need. They want to understand, what kind of mic to use. They want to understand what kind of coloring. They want to understand, some of the questions that we've discussed here this morning are actually what people need at this point in time. And I think that that's an area that I can help with. So that's the focus.
When is it coming out?
Been put on the spot, so I'm waiting for some of the content to get edited, but hopefully within the next few months.
Awesome. We look out for that, and congratulations and all the best.
Thank you.
It'll be nice one to hear, because even we need help. Like we are constantly growing and evolving. Just every episode is a new learning for us, so that we shoot.
I think it's something I'm learning along the way is, so I've always been very comfortable behind the camera. I'm not someone who's naturally comfortable in front of the camera, but I'm in a business where I'm encouraging everyone else to be in front of the camera. So it felt like it was time that I just did it myself, mainly so that I can, if I'm talking about embracing your niche and embracing who you are, and it has to be something that I do as well, and it has taught me that it's true. It has taught me that I'm very comfortable with the content and what I have to say, and everything else shouldn't matter. So I'm trying to convey that to other people as well.
And when you know something, it just flows.
Totally. It's like, have faith that you know your content, and that's what matters. As long as you're delivering something valuable for people and it's interesting and they want to learn more, that's the only thing that should matter in your content.
Absolutely. What do you have any hobbies apart from production that you love so much?
Amusingly, my biggest hobby is films. I love films. I always have, being in this industry. But I also love singing as well. And again, that's something that I felt I grew up singing a lot, and then it was missing from my life in Dubai. So I created a meetup called Dubai Canaries, and that's a great, just a fun space to sing without any real commitment or obligation. But singing, and I love dancing as well. So there's a part of me that's very creative in there, but singing and dancing. You are
generally a creative soul with all the video and production. It's all a creative field. So your right hemisphere is actually very active, which is why.
It is, but I think, when you start a business, then you start to also focus on the business elements of it, and it's the sales and the marketing and the growth and the clients, and you start to gradually move further away from the day-to-day production and the creativity, which is what may have drawn you to it to begin with. So I think, having these other hobbies like the singing, like the dancing, they just help, bring some of that back in.
Yeah, that'll be lovely. Maybe I would love to come on these shows. Please do invite me. I love listening to good music.
Okay.
Not so much singing, but do you think if you had not left your job for example, and you were working as a producer in some big agency and didn't have to do what you're doing now, would life be any different? Would it be better at all? Because I understand whenever we're talking about films and production, your eyes light up. When we talk about business element of sales and accounts, and you become like, I can see the pain in, that's not your area of interest at all. Your area of interest is production. Would it be better, or I don't know how to frame the question right, would it be better if you didn't do this, or is it better that you did this and went through the grind and understood this new aspects of entrepreneurship?
I think it definitely would have been easier,
Yeah.
So, there's something to be said for going to work and having a regular salary and being stable
and just
all
doing
of that.
production. That's what you love.
Yeah, it's definitely easier, but I have no regrets. So I'm someone who's a big believer in not having any regrets. I might make the wrong decisions, but at least I would have made the decision. I don't want to ever look back and think, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. So I don't think I would ever say that I wish I didn't do it or I'd go back in time, or no, I made those decisions for those reasons and I'm happy with the decisions I made. And that's led me to where I am now. And there've been good things and there've been bad things.
Absolutely.
But, the fact that, I'm in my 10th year of my business. You started with a statistic of most businesses closing within the first couple of years. We've managed to get past that hurdle.
Yeah.
So the fact that
two
we've
hurdles,
2
3
hurdles,
years and 7 years,
2 hurdles. So the fact that we're still here, and I believe in change and evolving. So it can only get better and it can only grow to bigger places. So no, I think it would have been easier, but not better.
Film and production, it's a time-consuming venture. Like when you are shooting, you are gone for days, maybe. I don't know what's involved, but this is what I assume, a little bit of understanding that I have of video. Considering also what we do, like a lot of planning goes into doing the shoots, and it takes away my entire day, and sometimes we finish late. And even when post-production, it takes a lot of time. It's a very demanding of time career. Did you ever feel that you forgot to have a life while you're doing this while you're in the grind, doing everything?
Totally. And that's actually one of the reasons I left my job, because you have to love this industry to be in it. A normal person would not do this. A normal person would not choose to have 12-hour days or 14-hour days unless they really enjoyed it. So and I love this industry from childhood. So I've always been used to the idea that you work on weekends and you work at night and you work early morning. And, the best time to shoot is sunrise. So if you're going to get to sunrise, you better wake up at like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
That's all been very normal for me and probably normal for a lot of people who are in this industry. But with that, you do lose a normalcy in your life. My first few years here when I was at Dubai One, I literally lost my life, as in all I ever did was work or shoot at all hours. The only people I spoke to or the people I knew were the ones I worked with. And there were 2 occasions, and I think this was where the penny started to drop, 2 occasions where I forgot a holiday. So, and I'm not even joking, and it happened a month apart. So I had one phone call from my dad where he said, "Hi, we're looking forward to seeing you today. What time do you land?" And I went, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm not coming. I think it was at that time, I'm doing the Dubai Air Show and I'm filming. I'm so sorry. I'll come next month." To begin with, I was shocked that I forgot that I was meant to be flying. And then a month later, I had this exact same phone call. A month later, my dad calls me again saying, "What time are you landing?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm doing the opening of Burj Khalifa. I forgot. I will have to come another time." And both times was on the day that I was meant to be flying. So that to me was a bit of like an alarm bell. Like, how have I forgotten twice that I'm meant to be flying to see my family? So I think, and it just was getting a bit too much, which is why I decided to put a pause and make a change. Little did I know at the time that choosing to change for entrepreneurship and my own business would result in maybe even more time consumption, because as a business owner, I don't think you can switch off. I think, you have to be on all the time. You get messages, emails, calls, very strange hours. But I've also built my business on that. So I guess because I'm used to it already, I've become known as someone who can help you last minute, help you quickly. And because of my TV experience, in TV, you do things very quickly. Live TV in particular, things go wrong all the time and you adjust and you adapt. So it doesn't worry me if someone calls me at Thursday at 6 o'clock and they need a video for Sunday morning. It's like, okay, we can do that. We have to figure out what we're going to do, but we can do it. So it's kind of prepared me to take on those challenges, which I may not have been able to take on otherwise. But yes, life is out the window for the most part, like normal life.
I'm a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki, and he has this book called The Cash Flow Quadrant, The Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you know about these books, one of my favorite books. And he talks about these 4 quadrants. You are an employee, you are a self-employed, you're a business owner, and you're an investor. The faster you come this side of the quadrant, the one is richer you get, the freer you get, which is you earn the freedom of time. And I understood this 10 years back, and I started working on that model since then. And touch wood, I have a good team. We have the new CEO getting ready. And very soon I'm going to be in the right side of the quadrant. And this exactly like what you said was that when you are a business owner and entrepreneur, you are constantly working. You never switch off because you have rents to pay, you have salaries to pay. You don't know where the next cash is coming from. These things keep you awake. But I wish somebody gave me this advice back then, is invest in learning. Know what you love doing and outsource or delegate the rest. You don't need to be doing everything in the business. And the faster you delegate the faster things go out of your table, the faster your business will grow. And that's a business mindset. That's not I was never fond of I loved looking at websites and doing strategy, but I never liked sitting and designing a website, though I'm qualified to do that as well. But the sooner you realize your strengths, the faster you grow as a business or as an entrepreneur. Last few questions. You read?
Yes.
What one book would you give as a gift to someone? Because I'm sure you have many favorite books. So I would be happy to hear them as well.
I think the controversial one is The 4-Hour Workweek, because I read that book and quit my job a week later.
Okay.
So it's probably not the deepest book out there, but it definitely instilled in my mind the idea that you can delegate a lot of what you do, and you can organize your life in chunks of time and have mini retirements. And so I loved all of the concepts in it, and it was enough for me, coupled with, the routine I was in. Reading a book like that at that time was like, there are people out there who are living much easier lives. So that's probably the book I would give, because I think it just sparks enough for you to take action.
Awesome. I love Tim Ferriss, and I love his podcast as well.
Yeah,
do you listen to podcasts?
I do listen, yes.
Do you listen to his podcast?
I do listen to his podcast.
And your favorite podcast would be?
I enjoy the Tony Robbins one most, because I like kind of reinstilling that. And the same, Gary Vee I listen to. Tim Ferriss I do listen to, not all of them. Some are a bit too long. But yeah, those are the main ones.
Yeah, I like long content. Maybe this is why our podcast is also long. Okay. I think we've had episodes which are around 2 hours, sorry. But it's good stuff. So... last few question. What keeps you motivated in toughest times? Is there something?
Self-belief. I genuinely believe that, I'm on the right path. It's a matter of time, focus. You'll get there. Stay persistent and ignore anyone and everything that's negative in your life. So I'm a very big believer in that.
Keep the toxic people out of your life.
Totally. Anyone who even gives me a feeling of negativity gets removed from all of my social media. Anyone who challenges me to a level where it questions my actions, I don't talk to. And even if it's family, I love my mother. Totally love her, obviously, but she's a very overprotective mum, as most mums are. So in most cases, if I'm about to plan something, I'll do it and tell her about it afterwards. You know, I don't want to have conversations with anyone who will deter me from my objective. So it's all about staying focused and positive and self-belief.
My next question is very related to that. So where are we heading? What's the vision?
So the vision for me is to be in that right quadrant. So, you know, to have Ti22, Dubai on Demand, and Fusion, which is we started that a year ago, which is basically social media video content. But to have the three of them, you know, running without me completely, and also aiming for bigger and more exciting projects, perhaps internationally as well.
Oh, awesome. We didn't speak about Fusion, the Fusion agent, which is this one, what you call Dubai on Demand is for influencers who want to create regular content. Fusion is for people who want ad hoc content for social media.
So yeah, pretty much. So we have Ti22 Films, which does all of our high-end projects. We have Dubai on Demand, which is on a membership plan. So we have a lot of business owners and individuals who pay monthly. And then Fusion is basically everything else. So, you know, you have customers who just need a video for a website, a video for an exhibition, whatever it may be, is other ad hoc video content. Yeah.
Closing thoughts, would you like to tell our viewers, our audience, how they can work with you? Where can they find you? What all different services you offer? I understand all of this, what you just shared, but anything you would like to ask for?
Yeah, thank you. I think the key really is that if you're out there and you're struggling creating your own video content, you're an expert, you're a coach, you're a consultant, and you just need to get more visible, you know, we can help. So it's about reaching out. Dubai on Demand, you can follow us on Instagram, or email us, team@dubaiondemand.com, and come in, have a chat. We help all kinds of people in all industries just get started. But also if you're a larger organization, then we have a wealth of experience with a lot of big brands and companies, and that's through Ti22 Films. So that's Ti22films.com. And if you just want some general help, hopefully my podcast will come out soon, and that's at Reim El Houni on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Reem. It was wonderful having you. I had a great time chatting to you and listening to your stories. I'm sure there are many more. And maybe we can have you again once your podcast goes live.
Sounds
to
like
talk about that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you again. And thank you all for watching and listening to this episode and this show until the end. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Reem. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask using the comment box below on whatever channels you're listening to this podcast, on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. I would love to receive reviews from you. I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear your messages. And you can, if you'd like to DM me, if you'd like me to interview a particular entrepreneur or a guest, send me a DM on Instagram at Namita Ramani. I would do everything and anything to see if the guest can come on our show. Thank you again for watching, and see you next week.